I painted a wall in my favorite color. My mother-in-law said, "You're turning this house into a joke." My husband said, "It's just paint. We can redo it later." My father-in-law added, "Why give her control when she can't even match shades?" I nodded, but I also contacted a designer. The new wall is now the centerpiece in a magazine spread titled, "When Silence Redecorates Better Than Approval." I never thought a wall would break me. We moved into the house 2 years ago. Raleigh, North Carolina. Not a big house. Not a dream home. But it was ours, and that mattered to me. It mattered because I'd spent the better part of my adult life moving from one rented apartment to another, always someone else's carpet, someone else's rules, someone else's beige walls. I wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere, that I could make something mine. My husband, Adam, and I bought the house after 5 years of scraping every extra dollar together. We were careful. We didn't have help from anyone, no handouts, no loans from family. It was us.
And me, mostly.
I worked side jobs to pad our savings, managed our budget down to the last penny. I sacrificed a lot of little things that added up over time. Nights out, takeout, new clothes. So when we finally moved in, I thought I'd earned the right to have a say. Not just in where the couch goes, but in how things feel. The first time I walked into that living room, all I saw was a blank box. Empty. Lifeless. Beige walls, beige carpets, beige blinds. It felt like a waiting room. That house had no soul. I knew I wanted to add color. I've always been someone who notices tones, how a room feels different depending on the shade of the light, the color on the wall. That might sound silly to some people, but for me, color is mood. Color is home. I found a green paint online one night. Warm, grounded, the kind of color that made me feel calm without being boring. I showed it to Adam and he just said, "Sure, I don't care."
So I took that as a yes.
I painted the accent wall in the living room while he was at work. I moved the furniture, taped the edges, laid out the drop cloths, and did the whole thing by hand. It took me the better part of a Saturday. I was exhausted, sore, and covered in paint splatter, but when I looked at that wall, I finally felt like something in this house looked like me. When Adam came home, he stood there, blinked a few times, and said, "Huh, that's bold." I waited. "Do you like it?" He shrugged. "It's just paint. We can redo it later." That stung. He said it like it didn't matter. Like I hadn't just spent hours pouring myself into something that felt meaningful to me. But I swallowed it. Like I always do. A week later, his parents came over. Unannounced, of course. They still had a key from when they helped us move in. I never asked them to return it, and that was my mistake. They treat this house like it belongs to them. I was in the kitchen when I heard my mother-in-law's voice echo from the living room. "Oh my God," she said. "You're turning this house into a joke." I walked in and found her standing there with her arms crossed, staring at the green wall like it had personally insulted her. She didn't even try to pretend she liked it. She turned to Adam and said, "Who told her this was a good idea? It looks like mildew." His dad chimed in, "Why give her control when she can't even match shades?" And Adam? He just stood there and laughed along with them, like it was no big deal, like I wasn't even in the room. He said again, "It's just paint. We can redo it." I didn't say a word. I nodded, smiled, and changed the subject. But something inside me cracked. Not because of the wall, but because it hit me. This wasn't my home.
Not really. Not to them.
Maybe not even to him.
They still saw me as the guest.
The outsider. The woman who married into their perfect little family and should stay in her lane. But here's what they didn't know. I don't scream. I don't fight. I don't throw tantrums or storm out. I go quiet. I go still. And when I'm quiet, I'm not backing down. I'm planning. That night, after they left, I stayed up for hours scrolling through interior design portfolios. I wasn't going to repaint that wall. I was going to build around it. I found a local designer with a reputation for elevated, modern Southern style. Not overdone, not trendy, just clean, thoughtful, and personal. I messaged her, sent her pictures of the wall, and told her what I was working with. She called me the next morning. She got it. She didn't mock the color. She said, "This green? It's not safe. It's a choice. But if we frame it right, it could be the soul of the room." We worked together in secret for 2 months. I sold our old furniture on Facebook Marketplace. I bought secondhand mid-century pieces and refinished them myself in the garage. I added texture, linen, brass, light oak. We reworked the layout so the room felt open and intentional. We changed the lighting to warm white instead of the harsh overhead glare. I spent every spare dollar from my side hustle on that room. And Adam? He barely noticed. He was always too tired from work, too distracted by his phone. I told him I was just fixing things up. He didn't care either way. When the designer saw the final result, she was blown away. She asked if she could submit it to a regional design magazine for a feature they were doing on modern living rooms. I said yes, thinking nothing would come of it. But it did. A month later, they came for the photo shoot. 2 photographers, a writer, the whole deal. They staged the room, took photos from every angle, and interviewed me about how I designed the space. I told them the truth. How it started with one color that made me feel something in a house that had made me feel invisible. The spread came out last month. Full color. 6 pages. My living room. That green wall, my green wall, front and center. The headline? When silence redecorates better than approval. They quoted me, called the design bold but inviting. Said the space had confidence, restraint, and warmth. The paint brand even reposted the article on their Instagram. Last week, Adam's parents came over again. They walked in, sat down, and his mother noticed the magazine on the coffee table. She picked it up, flipped through it, and froze when she saw the spread. "That's your wall," she said. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Yeah, it is." She didn't speak after that. Just sat there like someone had knocked the wind out of her. Adam didn't say anything either. He just stared at me. Maybe for the first time, he realized he didn't actually know who I was. That wall? It was never just paint. It was the first time I reclaimed something. The first time I stopped asking for permission. And now I'm just getting started. The day that magazine came out, something shifted in my house. The room didn't just look different anymore, it felt different. That wall, that shade of green, had become a line in the sand. I could feel it every time I sat down. Like I had claimed territory I wasn't supposed to touch. Adam wouldn't talk about the article. Not even a word. I left the magazine out in plain sight, open to the spread, and he'd walk right past it like it wasn't there. "No congrats." "No, that's cool." Nothing. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he felt weird that I didn't tell him everything as it was happening. But the truth is, I did tell him. He just didn't listen. A few days later, I found out he had seen the magazine. He was at the kitchen counter on his phone, and I could see from where I stood that he was texting his sister, Rachel. I don't usually snoop, but something about his body language made me pause. He was hunched, typing fast, eyes darting toward me like he didn't want me to see. I waited until he left the room and checked the tablet he left open on the counter. The messages were synced. "Adam, she's so full of herself lately. Thinks she's some designer now." "Rachel, is that her living room in the magazine?" "Adam, yet." She didn't even tell me until it came out. Just did it all behind my back. "Rachel, that color is ugly, lol." "Adam, thank you." I said that, but apparently I don't get it. Whatever. She's been acting weird since my parents made that joke. Weird? Weird. I felt like my heart got wrung out like a towel. I didn't confront him. I didn't say a word. I let the silence keep working. But I started seeing things differently after that. How easily he slipped into that role of agreeing with whoever he was talking to. How little backbone he had. How fast he threw me under the bus for approval from his family. And then came the birthday dinner. His mom invited us to a restaurant for her 60th. Fancy place. Everyone dressed up. I wore a simple black dress and even brought a copy of the magazine with me, one I had signed by the editor, just in case they wanted to see it. The whole family was there, siblings, cousins, Rachel and her loudmouth husband, even distant relatives I'd never met. Halfway through the meal, his mom stands up to give a speech. "I just want to say," she said, raising her glass, "how lucky I am to have a family that shares the same taste in everything. Home, values, aesthetics. You never know what someone will do when left unsupervised." Then she looked at me. People chuckled. I sat there frozen, heat creeping up my neck. Adam didn't say a word. Rachel piped up. "Hey, is that famous green wall in here with us tonight?" More laughter. I didn't touch my food after that. When we got home, I put the Sign magazine copy in the fireplace and watched it burn. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to try to earn their approval. I wasn't going to soften myself to make him more comfortable. I was going to reclaim every inch of this house, and not just the house, my life. I called the designer the next day and told her I was ready to do the next room. I didn't tell Adam. Instead, I moved all of his old gaming junk from the spare room into the garage.
That room was now mine.
I turned it into a studio space, a place to create.
Right. Design.
I got certified in interior color consulting through an online course. I started taking on small freelance projects. Friends, neighbors, people on Facebook Marketplace who wanted help picking colors or rearranging furniture on a budget. And I was good at it. I kept the money in a separate account. Quietly. The more I rebuilt my confidence, the more Adam pulled away. The more his family made snide comments. Little things. His dad, "Don't get too comfortable playing house. This won't last forever." Rachel, "It's cute she has a little hobby now." His mom, "I'm just saying." Some people decorate to distract themselves. But I let them talk. Because while they were laughing, I was building something real. The day a stranger messaged me on Instagram asking for paid design help because she saw my living room featured in another magazine repost, I knew I was finally getting out from under their thumb. But Adam? He wasn't ready for the woman I was becoming. And he was about to prove it in the worst possible way. 3 weeks after I finished redesigning the spare room into my studio, I came home early from a client consultation to find Adam in the garage. I hadn't told him I was coming back early. I walked in quietly through the side door. He didn't hear me. He was on the phone, pacing in front of the boxes I'd packed with his old gaming gear. I could only hear one side of the conversation. No, I didn't ask her. What's the point? She's going to do what she wants anyway. No, I'm not kidding. She turned the damn spare room into a Pinterest page.
He paused, then laughed.
I know. She thinks she's some kind of design guru now.
It's exhausting.
Honestly, I'm starting to wonder if we even want the same life anymore. My body froze. Then he said, "Just don't say anything until I figure out how to bring it up." That was the first time I truly saw it. He wasn't just tolerating me. He was preparing to leave me. Not today. Not tomorrow. But he was laying the emotional groundwork. Turning his family, his friends, maybe even himself, against me. When he went inside, I stayed in the garage and cried harder than I had in years. Not because I didn't see it coming, but because I did, and I'd let it happen anyway. Later that night, I went into the studio and started sorting through paperwork, needing something to focus on. That's when I found it. An envelope. Not hidden, just tucked between some printer paper. It was from a mortgage refinance company. It had his name on it, and only his. I read it 3 times. It was an offer, pre-approval, terms, numbers, and a sticky note that read, "Follow up this week early buyout option." That's when it hit me. He was trying to take the house. Not sell it. Not offer to split it. Take it. I checked the date. 3 weeks old. He'd already started. I tore through our files, searching for anything else I might have missed. Bank statements. Password resets. Quiet little paper trails. That's when I noticed the joint account had less money in it than it should have. Thousands less. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my studio, shaking, trying to put together a timeline. While I was painting walls, picking textiles, and slowly crawling back to life, he was positioning himself to erase me. The next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office. I requested a title history on the house. That's where I got the second gut punch. 6 months ago, Adam had filed to have the deed rewritten, naming himself as the primary owner. Said it was a clerical cleanup since he'd handled the loan. I'd signed it. He told me it was refinance paperwork for better rates. And I trusted him. My signature was right there.
He'd used me.
Lied to me. Manipulated me with that same calm, dismissive tone he always used when telling me it was just paint or just a wall. But this wasn't just a wall. This was my life. And now I knew. I was in a war. A quiet, calculated one. That green wall wasn't a mistake. It was the first shot fired. And he was about to find out what happens when the woman he erased decides she's done playing house. After I left the recorder's office, I drove straight to a quiet coffee shop near Glenwood South, the kind with no music and strong espresso. I opened my laptop and began making copies of every document I could find: emails, bank records, title papers, refinance offers. I made a new email address, created cloud backups, printed everything. I wasn't just angry. I was preparing for war. I wasn't going to scream at Adam. I wasn't going to beg. That would have made me easy to dismiss. Like always. Instead, I played dumb. For weeks. I made dinner. Smiled. Asked about his day. Kept designing my clients' homes, cashing payments into the side account he didn't know existed. While he was watching basketball, I met with a lawyer. She read through everything I brought her and said quietly, "If this is how he moves in silence, we'll do the same, but better." Turns out I'd signed the deed. Yes. But North Carolina is a marital property state. He couldn't sell or refinance without my consent, not if we were still married. And my consent had a paper trail of lies attached to it. The lawyer said if he tried anything, we had leverage. Especially once we subpoenaed financial records showing he was quietly moving money out of our shared account. She looked me in the eye and said, "Do you want the house?" I nodded. More than that, I want him out of it. So we made a plan. First step? Legal separation. Filed quietly, served with timing he'd never expect. Second? Lock down the money. I moved my direct deposit, opened an account solely in my name, and set up alerts on our joint account. Every transaction, I got a ping. He didn't notice. The final piece? A designer's open house. I invited every client I'd worked with in the past year. Local designers, bloggers, even a rep from the same magazine that featured the green wall. I told them I was hosting a private showing of my signature transformation, my own home. I send out personalized invites on heavy cardstock with a simple line: "Come see the wall that started it all." Adam wasn't even curious. Just said, "Don't make a mess, all right?" The day of the open house, I staged every room. My studio, the green wall, even the garage, now repurposed as a mood board space with hanging samples and finished work. I wore black. Clean lines, no jewelry. Just calm control. People came. They asked questions. Took pictures. Complimented my work. A few even scheduled consultations. Adam showed up halfway through, confused, standing in the doorway while 20 strangers admired the space he once called a Pinterest page. One woman said, "This whole house feels like it has a soul." I looked right at him and said, "Thank you. That was the goal." After the last guest left, I handed him the envelope. Separation papers. Financial disclosures. A list of items being removed from the house. Every single one I had bought or refinished with my own hands. He looked up, stunned.
"Wait.
You're leaving?" "No," I said. "You are." He laughed, like I was being dramatic, until I handed him the letter from my lawyer. And the notarized affidavit confirming he'd lied to me about the deed. The bank statements. The messages to his sister. The refinance attempt. "This is insane," he stammered. "You're blowing everything up over paint?" I stared at him, dead calm.
"No.
I'm burning it down because you tried to erase me in my own home." He moved out 3 days later, back to his parents, fittingly. The day he left, I painted over the doorframe where he'd marked the height of a nephew he never visited. I replaced the couch he insisted was too comfortable to get rid of. I rekeyed every lock. A few weeks later, a local online design magazine reached out to interview me for a feature called Women Who Build the Home They Deserve. They photographed the green wall again. It looked different now, stronger, fuller, surrounded by the life I'd built around it. The title? She Took the Wall. And the house. People still ask me how I stayed so calm. How I didn't explode when he humiliated me in front of his family. When he moved money behind my back. When he tried to erase me from something I built. The answer is simple. I don't fight for approval anymore. I build. I reclaim. And when necessary, I redesign the exit.